In this video, we're going to cover a misunderstanding that some people have about one of the functions of the SafetyPro printer. And that function is the form feed button that you find on top of the printer. So just a bit of background, form feed, the term form feed in printing comes from back in the day of the form-fed printers, where the printer paper had, tractor feeds on the edges. And there was a button on those printers where you pushed the button and it would advance one page, one blank page without printing, so that you could tear it off or do whatever you needed to do. And the form feed button on the SafetyPro is very much the same thing. So so it's designed to basically feed out whatever was last printed. Unlike a printer of the olden days that printed on 8.5 by 11 pages, the SafetyPro can print any size. So let me show you real quick how this form feed button works. First, we're going to start by printing an actual label. I've got a couple test labels already prepared here. I'm going to print a 3" by 4" label to show you that. So you got a 3" by 4" label here with the word test on it a couple times. Now, if I press the form feed button at this point, I'll get another 3" by 4" blank label. Nothing's been printed. I've just told it that I want to form feed a 3" by 4" blank label. Not much use to that unless you really want to feed out blank material. Again, it's continuing to print these 3" by 4" labels because that was the last thing that I created. Now if I print another label, for example, I have a 3" by 1" label with the word test on it. Now if I press form feed after printing that, it's going to give me a blank 3" by 1". That's the proper, exact way that we expect a form feed to work on a printer. Now the problem that comes into play here is that a lot of people feel like for whatever reason, they need to press this button when they reload material. Oftentimes when you load material, you might have the material coming out the front of the printer like that. Now since I already printed something, that will feed out an inch in addition to what I had, and it will cut it off, and it will continue doing a 1". Now what happens, however, is that sometimes people press this button after first turning the printer on before having printed anything. Now when that happens, the printer often gets into a mode where it doesn't know what size label you had. It doesn't know any of the other settings. Now this printer is capable of a lot of different settings. So if it thinks it's in a setting where, for example, there is no ribbon present, and that's called direct thermal, that will cause an error. Let's simulate that error real quick by actually setting the printer to direct thermal. Now in direct thermal, it's going to assume that there is no ribbon loaded in the top. The ribbon is the ink portion inside the clear cover here. When it thinks there is no ink portion, it doesn't bother turning the ink, and I'll show you what happens when you do that. Let me just set it up on the computer real quick. Now notice here, it spit the ribbon out with the label that I made. Now the problem there is that now our ribbon is cut. It's no longer loaded properly. It's chopped off. And so you have to go back in here and reload your ribbon. I'm just going to tape it back onto this roll. Now, like I said, in some cases, when you first turn the printer on, it believes it's in that mode, in this direct thermal mode. So let's just assume that this printer was just pulled out of the box, turned on, and for whatever reason the memory got reset. It thinks it's in direct thermal mode, and I press the form feed button. What happens? I get a blank label, and it also cut my ribbon. Now a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll go on pressing this form feed button when they load, and a lot of times it'll work. It'll think it's in the correct mode and everything will happen properly. And then out of the blue, for whatever reason, the printer gets reset. It thinks it's in direct thermal mode. They press the button and they think something's wrong. Nothing's wrong. The only thing that is wrong is that you really don't need to press form feed for anything other than spitting out blank material, which for 99% of our customers is never necessary. So my recommendation to you is don't bother with the form feed. When you load your material, load it on the top of the platen so that it can grab and pull out the front. Otherwise, if you do load your material with some out the front, just count on your first print coming out with that little bit of extra and cut off the extra manually. You'll avoid a lot of problems that way, and you'll avoid using the form feed button in a way that it wasn't intended. It's not necessary to press it when you load the printer.